Shouldn't expect rates to fall as quickly as they climbed. That's the message from RBA Governor Philip Lowe in his final parliamentary grilling in the Top Job. I bet he was happy to see the end of that. Now, that is, of course, before Michelle Bullock takes over. Let's bring in macro business chief economist Leith Van Onselen. Leith, thank you very much for your time. What happens now when you look at what he said, do you think, for the rest of the year?
Look, I think interest rates are going to stay on hold for a fairly extended period of time. Phil Lowe in his final testimony today was cautiously optimistic on inflation. He basically thinks that the data that has come in recently has been pretty much in line with what they want. He thinks the RBA, that the inflation is going to hit the RBA's target by about the end of 2025. It's going to gradually keep falling. But he is, a little bit worried about. He's still got some concerns around, potential wage pressures, rent increases, sticky energy prices, things like that. Basically, the next key bit of data that we're going to rely on is actually going to come out next week. We've got the wage price index. That's the quarterly wage growth for the June quarter, comes out next week, and if that comes in above 4%, that could cause the RBA some concern. As well, we've also got the July labour force data, so that's the unemployment rate, etc. So if that comes in low next week, lower than the RBA expects, and you've got higher wage growth, well, then that could force them to hike next month. But I think based on what their expectations, they're going to basically remain on hold, and that's sort of what they said. They're going to remain on hold unless the data surprises on the upside.
Talk to me about immigration. You put it so well. I don't think anyone else makes more sense than you do in this space. Where are we at? Why does it matter so much?
Oh, look, it matters for everything, obviously, living standards, etc. But Phil Lowe actually said at today's House of Representatives meeting that effectively with the population growth growing at 2.5% and the housing stock growing at 1.5%, we're basically creating this immigration-led housing shortages across the country. And this is actually pumping up rental inflation. And that's of course, not only impacting Australians negatively, was also putting upward pressure on inflation. And he also said that it's having a productivity impact, a negative one, because basically with the population growth going up at 2.5% and businesses not investing at the same rate, we're effectively getting more capacity constraints across the economy. And that, you see that every time you drive your car, etc. And that effectively lowers the nation's productivity as well. And then that can create upward pressure on inflation. So effectively, we've got this burnout economy at the moment where the RBA has its foot jammed on the brake while the Albanese government has its foot jammed on the accelerator.
Yeah.
And that's, basically pumping demand and putting upward pressure on inflation. So the RBA is trying to do one thing. The Albanese government, by putting excess numbers of people in the country, is driving up inflation in other ways and causing all these sorts of problems.
So how do we balance the competing interests? The government obviously wants more people here. They want more taxes paid, but we don't have the infrastructure, particularly housing. What needs to happen?
Oh, look, it obviously needs to be cut. I mean, basically, we need to reduce immigration to a level that is commensurate with the nation's ability to supply homes and also supply infrastructure. And unfortunately, we're running at rates that are probably double that, to be quite frank. So effectively, if we don't slow it down, we're going to have a worsening housing crisis. And we're also going to have obviously more congestion in infrastructure, etc., less hospital beds per person, less school places per person. And ultimately, what that means is lower living standards for Australians.
Yep, Leith Van Onselen, it makes way too much sense for anything to actually happen along those lines. Thank you so much for your time, as always.
Thanks, Erin.